Stephani Gunther brings a bachelor's degree in social work from Fresno Pacific University and 17 years of experience in adult day programs to Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center. Stephani has served as a program manager for Valley Caregiver Resource Center in Fresno, where she managed 2 adult day programs for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. It's her passion to serve older adults and their families as they go through the caregiving journey. She has an extensive background in adult day programming, and she really enjoys educating caregivers about activities that they can implement in their homes. In fact, Stephani has offered a longer version of this presentation at Del Oro in the past. In addition to serving her clients, Stephani enjoys traveling and spending time with family. Stephani, whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started.
All right, thanks Simone for the introduction. And let me see if I can, there we go. All right, so, and thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your afternoon to talk about activities with me. Like Simone said, this is something that I enjoy talking about and enjoy sharing with other people. My background has given me a lot of experience in that. While I was at Valley Caregiver Resource Center, I was a program manager, but I did start, on the floor working with we called them participants, hands-on, and so I did a lot of activities even through my time there as program manager as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and get right on into it here. I think we're just giving a little bit of a background before we get started, just to try to find out why we need activities, or answer the question, why do we need activities? And so what activities do, they provide structure through the day for your loved one. They have a daily routine, and that routine provides security for them. You think about it, all of their lives have been structured, up until this point. They wake up in the morning, they get up and they go to work, they have a family, they have social time, they vacation, and they continue to do that through their whole entire life. Just because they are diagnosed with dementia doesn't mean that they don't need that structure anymore. In fact, it's probably really important to create that routine because of that security that it provides. The next point is that it provides purpose for your loved one. It may be hard for them to feel motivated or to understand why they need to be doing what they're doing. As things around them change, their world around them changes, and they start to see changes in themselves, that purpose is really important for them. So you're likely to have better results with an activity if they feel like they have a reason to do it, or it gives them a purpose. And we'll go into this more, but I put in here, it will help me. So if you ask them to do something and they feel like they're helping you, they feel like they're giving back or contributing in some way, you're likely to have a better result for them participating in that activity. Activities also build self-esteem. And kind of like we just said, as their world is changing, they start to lose some of those abilities, and they see that they're losing some of those abilities. And so it's important that they're able to build up that self-esteem from where they're at, and these activities give them that self-esteem as they're able to succeed through those activities. And then also an activity can help decrease some of the agitation, frustration, and difficult behaviors. And a lot of behaviors can come from just being bored. And so as a caregiver, your job is to find activities for them, or you're constantly looking for activities for them. And it can be difficult sometimes. So today I'm going to try to give you some ideas of ways to be creative, to create those activities for your loved one at home, and hopefully you'll see some of these results. I also want to talk about approaches to activities. So for you as the caregiver, you want to have a reason for the activity. And activities are everywhere. If you wake up in the morning, you start with an activity. You get up, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you get ready for the day, you make breakfast, you have this routine that you follow through the day. So really, we all do these activities. So I put on here an example, maybe that the mail comes at 3 o'clock each day. So you get your loved one up and you go to the mailbox and you get the mail. And that activity you're giving them some exercise, they're looking forward to it. At 3 o'clock, they know that that's what happens, and it's part of that routine. Of course, these activities are meant, are just ideas. If your loved one's not at that position to be able to go to the mailbox, there are other things that we can do. The next point is adapting, and it's a tool that will help lessen their agitation. It's a tool for you that will help you lessen their agitation. So a person with dementia is in their own reality, and in that reality, we have to function, and it's our job to keep them safe and keep them active and keep them engaged. And so being able to think on your feet, be one step ahead of them. I like to think of it as a dance, because you never really know what's going to happen next or where they're going to be, because a person with dementia can be moment to moment. And so it's really important that we're able to adapt what we're doing to be able to lessen some of that agitation and keep them safe. The other thing is that you are the one that's going to know what they like and what they don't like. Likely you've been a part of their life for a very long time, and so you know if they enjoy baking, if they enjoy being on the patio outside, if they enjoy that they may not like to eat certain things, that they do better in the morning than they do in the afternoon, and what to stay away from and what to actually engage them in. And so it's important to keep that in mind as you go through your day and you're creating these activities. I think it's important to note, though, too, that you're not going to know what they can't do until they can't do it. And so be willing to try new things. Give them the opportunity to show you that they can't do it. And if it's an activity that you can adapt so that they can do it, then by all means, now you've created another activity. And then if you're not able to do the activity yourself, sometimes they have good days and they have bad days, and we all do, whether we have dementia or not. And so it's important to be able to have a team to help you if you have that opportunity, to have other people help provide those activities. Sometimes they may respond to you and they may not respond to me. They may respond to your son or your daughter more appropriately or better than they would to you if you're bringing that activity to them. And so don't take that personally, but that is something that does happen. And you may see that even just in your interactions with watching them interact with other people. And another thing that you may have to do is change your scenery. And there are going to be follow-up videos in the next couple of weeks, and we'll go through different activities in different rooms of the house. So it kind of gives you an idea of some specific activities that you can do that may be helpful for you, especially if you're having a hard time with them in one room. It may be appropriate to go on the patio and drink coffee in the morning, as opposed to trying to drink it at the kitchen table. Want to make sure that you're communicating effectively and keeping things simple. You're going to get better results if you're able to keep it simple. And as the disease progresses, the more simple things are, the more successful they are going to feel. You may have to prompt them if needed, and that's okay. As they kind of get through, as they start the activity, it may come back to them. And then I say this therapeutic storytelling, but I've heard others refer to this as compassionate lying, fibbing, something like that. Like we were talking about before, they live in their own reality, and it's us in that reality. So what's going on for them is very real and very, they're absolutely right. And who am I to go into their reality and tell them that they're wrong? And so in that reality, again, we have to do that dance. And that dance may include me telling them what they need to hear to calm them down, to get them to do the activity that we're wanting them to do. And then take care. It's an acronym that we'll go over in a second here, but it's another way of communicating, and it's helpful when you are doing activities and going through your day and encountering different, maybe behaviors, maybe agitation, frustration, or even, just needing a change in pace. This is that take care that we talked about. So on the left-hand side of your screen, it says try not to criticize, argue, reason, or explain. And when you're in their reality, those things are very hard for us to do. It's like an uphill battle that we'll probably not be very successful at. Um, and so instead of that, you want to acknowledge their feelings, reassure them, and change the subject. And so when we're going through some of these activities, especially through the house, you may need to, when you get to that, you're acknowledging how they're feeling, you're reassuring them and changing that subject. You may need to change the scenery, change the environment, change, you know, if you're in the kitchen, go to the patio. If you're in the patio, go to the bedroom. So there's it's a really good tool for you to use while you're going through your day. It's difficult to learn, absolutely. But if you can remember it in those harder times, and the more that you use it, the easier things will be for you. So getting on to the activities here, there's some training from a lady, her name is Teepa Snow, and at the bottom of your screen, there's a link to the YouTube channel that she has. And she's like a guru of activities in dementia care. And so these are 4 types of activities that she has come up with. The first one is productive activities, leisure activities, self-care activities, and restoration activities. And these are things that we all need in our lives, whether we have dementia or not. So let's see here as we go through. Productive activities are activities that you feel accomplished at, feel like you're doing something. Productive activities give you the feeling of being valued because of the work that they've done. So like washing the dishes is an example of the couple on the right here. He may feel valued because he's helping his wife, and he's completing something. They've started an activity and they've completed it. A productive activity gives them those feelings of making a difference. I make a difference because of who I am, and they just simply feel needed. A leisure activity, I think we all kind of have these in our life. I hope you have a balance of these in your life as well. But a leisure activity is something that should bring you joy. It makes you feel good, doing things just because you like those things. Pleasurable activities that can be passive and active, kind of like watching TV would be a passive activity. Active activity may be like the woman on the top who's knitting and keeping her mind and her hands active at the same time. You need a mixture of both of those kinds of both active and passive through the day. Let's see, and then self-care. Self-care activities are activities where you're taking care of your body, things that you do on a daily basis. So you get up, like we were talking about. You get up, you bathe, you groom, you're dressing and undressing, meal prep and feeding, transferring, restroom care and incontinence, also walking and moving. And these are things that the more that they're able to do for themselves, the more independent they're going to be. And in the long run, that's going to be helpful for you. There's a saying that I heard some time back when I was going through some of my training, is that the more that you do for them, the more that you take from them. And so even though these activities that they're doing, you know, getting up, going to the bathroom, showering, prepping meals, those types of things, they may take them a little bit longer to do, or they may be done in a way that you may not have done them. The point is that they're still doing them for themselves. And I think that's what's important, is if they're able to do them for themselves, give them that opportunity and time to do them for themselves. And it's just a part of that self-care. Another part of self-care is taking care of the brain. They need activities that are going to cause their brain to be stimulated, to think, a lot like the gentleman who's reading the newspaper. Gives them, even if they're sitting there reading the newspaper all day long in the same position, I wouldn't suggest that, but have them get up and go back to it. But even if that's what they do, if they're reading the newspaper over and over and over again, they're still stimulating their mind. They're still utilizing some of those skills. We may not know what they're retaining, but they're still using it, and that's what's important. And also part of self-care is taking the care of the environment around you, making sure that things are where they are when you need them. So, you know, much like doing the dishes, make sure that you're helping prepping the meals, you're eating the meal, and then finishing it with cleaning up. And you're just taking care of your environment. And of course, I think I should have said this before, but these are activities. Not everybody's going to be able to do these activities the way that you know, a person who may have just been recently diagnosed could do it. But it's all about adapting as well, and we'll get into that. Rest and restoration. So it's not just about taking a nap. It's not just about going into the bedroom and laying down on the bed. But rest and restoration is just the ability to recharge your batteries. And depending on who you are, some of us need to have alone time to recharge. But other people gain energy from being around other people. So this goes back to you knowing your loved one. And if this is something that, you know, if other people agitate them and they're not able to relax, or just being in a room where, you know, there's a couple of people who are just engaged in conversation and they're just sitting around listening to the conversation, that may be recharging some of those batteries as well. Spiritual restoration. You know, especially if church or their faith background has been a part of their life for many, many years, it's important to still nurture that now. And so, you know, attending church, whether that's, you know, going to actual church or watching it on TV or on the computer, listening to religious music or reciting prayers, giving them that opportunity to have that time through the day or through the week. And then also taking care of yourself as a caregiver. All of these things are for you as well too. And it really is a balance of taking care of you and taking care of them. And my job as a family consultant is to make sure that you guys are taken care of so that you can take care of them. So making sure you have that balance and creating time through the day and week for you as well. So some of the activities that you may create or come up with, you may have to adjust. And we kind of talked about that too. So having an activity, you may have to simplify the activity. And a good way of, a good explanation of this is using the card game Uno. In that game, it's they have a couple of different types of cards in there, like draw fours, draw twos, reverses, skips. Those cards are confusing for me. And so for them, it may be really difficult. But to continue to still be able to match the color and the numbers, that may be something that they're able to do. So taking out those cards, the draw fours, the skips, the draw twos, those types of cards, really kind of simplifies the game. So now it's just a matching game, matching the color, matching the number. It can be simplified even farther than that. And what you can do is take them and have them match just the color, have them match just the number. If they're not at a place where they're able to recognize either the color or the numbers, it can become a tactile thing at that point, and just give them the cards and let them play with them on the table. Utilize them, like, you know, go back and forth, shuffle if they can. Just kind of move things around on the table, have them stack them up, that type of thing. It gives them something to do with their hands, and they're still active and they're still engaged. An activity that you plan could be the best planned out activity. And I was thinking about baking in this, and they may be able to help you bake. You know, follow the directions, and you could simplify the activity. But it may be something that they lose, you know, their attention span has gone, and they may not be able to stay in that room for that long. So being able to increase or decrease the length of time that the activity is, or that the length of time of the activity to meet their needs. So just kind of gauging that and keeping an eye on, you know, how they're feeling during that activity. If it's something that they're getting agitated with, it may not work today, but it may work tomorrow. It may have worked yesterday, but it doesn't work today. It could work tomorrow. You also may need to use that therapeutic storytelling and or change the environment or setting. When you're doing these activities, it's also important for you to have realistic expectations. So when you're, yeah, another example may be when you're cutting out, you may have them cut out coupons, and you think that they should be able to cut around the lines, but that may not be what they're able to do on this day. And so just have realistic expectations about that. It may not be what you had anticipated it to be, but if they are engaged in the activity and they've been able to do that on their own and it was successful, then it gave them purpose and it gave them worth and value, then it is a successful activity, whether it looks the way that you think it should look or not. And it kind of goes into the next point here is just want to focus on the feelings of accomplishment and things that give them that sense of self-worth. When they're able to build up on those things, that the self-esteem that we had kind of talked about at the beginning, it's really important for them to have that. And the more that they can do for themselves, the more confident they are in their abilities, overall, it's going to be better for everybody. Also, weigh out the situation. The example that I like to use with this one is, I had a caregiver one time who had a loved one who had a stroke, and she was able to still function, but one of the things is she would drool. But her daily routine after every meal was to wash her dishes. But her daughter was so afraid of it just being sanitary because she was drooling and she wasn't washing them properly. And so she would have this argument with her mom every time that, they would have a meal, and it would go on for 10, 15, 20 minutes about who was going to do the dishes. You have to weigh the situation out, pick your battles. She could have just let her mom, and she eventually did, just let her mom wash her own dishes, and then went back later and had to go back and rewash those dishes so they were, clean for the next use. But she wasn't so frustrated at the end of it. She knew what she knew what was going to happen. And when she said, okay, fine, you can go ahead and do it, then that gave her 10 or 15 minutes to sit down and take care of herself and practice her own self-care. And her mom was able to do something that she's done for herself her whole entire life. So just weigh out the situation. If you think it's important for you to, like for her, if she would have thought that it was not something that was safe for her mom to do, then absolutely you need to step in at that point. But weigh it out. Is it worth that frustration on your part and between the two of you? Also, just kind of going back to the outcome, adjust your perspective. It may not be what you had anticipated, but and it may not be to the level that you had wanted it to be or thought that they could do. But if they've done the activity, they've been engaged for for so long, and they felt successful, then it's a successful activity, and we should find joy in those small things. Find joy in the fact that that's what they just did, and they felt accomplished, and so you should feel accomplished too because you helped them get to that point. So all of these things are really important when you're planning out those activities. And I think that's the end of it here. Simone?
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie. We want to leave a little bit of time for some questions. And Stephanie, we actually received some in the chat. The first question was essentially, what can a caregiver do when his or her loved one doesn't listen to instructions? Or what would you recommend?
If they don't listen to instructions?
Yeah.
So it's important, again, just kind of going back to the perspective. Are they in the activity that they're trying to do, is it harming them if they're not doing it a certain way? If they're doing it their way, is it okay? I think maybe just some clarification on what that activity may be would be helpful to answer your question. But just kind of looking at, you don't want to create activities that are successful for them. And if they're trying to do something, then and they're engaged in whatever that something is, and they're safe in that activity, then it just adjusts your perspective a little bit to see that they're actually, that is something they're doing, and is it worth the frustration that may come if you're trying to reason with them or explain to them that that's not how they do it, or this is how they should do it.
Okay. Another question that sort of relates to the first, I think, how much structured or activity should a caregiver provide within a
Yeah,
given day?
that's a really good question. I think I'm going to go back to perspective. If you look at your daily routine, you are doing activities from the moment that you wake up until the moment that you go to sleep, and those are structured. I mean, you wake up, you get up, and you have that. Maybe you have a cup of coffee, you have breakfast, like that whole routine. That's structured. Creative activities where you're giving them things to do. And I would draw off of my experience from the day programs but we had an activity calendar from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not saying that that's what you have to do. And we changed the activities every 20 to 30 minutes. So it was very active. But if if you want to set aside a couple of, maybe an hour or two in the morning and an hour or two in the afternoon, and I think you may find, especially when you're just starting out and trying to find things to do, you may find that, that hour or two in the morning, hour or two in the afternoon is helpful. And it gives you a little bit of time to kind of back away from them for a little while, and give them that space to do that activity. Or if you're doing the activity with them also, it can be it can be a fun thing to do. But I mean, it just depends on you, and that structure is really up to you. If you're looking for something that's keeping them active and going all day long, that may be helpful. And, you may see some results if they're active through the day. You may see some better sleeping results at night. That's not a guarantee, but that is something that you may be able to, you can kind of correlate. If they're having more activities through the day, they're sleeping better at night.
Great. And then we had one more question. How would you approach a family member or potential client who doesn't understand that that the care receiver, the person who has dementia, can't complete the activity up to a certain standard or expectation that the family member has? How would you help that caregiver?
Yeah, it's difficult. Family dynamics are always going to be difficult. And I think it's really just about giving them the opportunity to see where your loved one is at. And, we're having them sit down, and like we kind of talked about it in one of the slides, we talked about having somebody else help. That may be a great opportunity for them to see, as they're doing the activity with them, have them plan the activity, and see where your loved one is at, so that they have an idea that they're not capable of doing it. I think that really it's a hands-on thing, and it, they may not, you may get kickback from them if they don't, if they can't be here to do it, if that's not realistic for them, especially during COVID times. But if it's not realistic for them, that may be difficult. But you really just having to have the conversation about this, you be detailed about it. Give them examples of what you see and the changes that you've seen in your loved one. And give them examples of times that you've tried to have them do, maybe, just trying to think of an activity that they may decline that. So maybe writing out a letter, writing out a grocery list. You're comparing their handwriting to something from before. It may not be the same. And just giving them that example that there is some progression here, and it's not something that they're not going to relearn it. It's not something that they're going to pick back up. And it's a kind of a grieving process that you have to go through as you see some of these declines. And it's going to be different for each person, especially other family members who are not working with your loved one on a daily basis. And so just kind of working with them on that. I would even also, if you're talking about it with activities, it's likely there's other things going on in the home that other family member is having, kind of looking in on. So I would encourage you to have a conversation with your family consultant too about, communicating with other family members as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. And just as kind of a piggyback on the last question that we had, in your experience, have any family members ever, visited adult day programs to kind of see how their loved ones handle activities, and then sort of taken that experience, or use that experience to inform what they do in the home?
Yes, and no. So two sides to that. So yes, I would encourage you, if you do have your loved one in a day program, to go and see what they do in that program. But I would also caution you, because as each of us know, we all have our own, what we all call social graces. So when they're around somebody else, they may act differently. They may, they may have, they may be more difficult for you at home, especially if you're getting them up and going to the day program. And then once they get to the program, they're around their friends. Now they're in a space where they feel comfortable, and so they may not have those same kinds of maybe behaviors or agitations or things like that in the day program. With that also said, in the day program, they are around their friends, and so it's more of a social atmosphere. It's a place for them to be who they are, how they want to be, where they're at in their life. So some of those activities that they do at the day program, if you try to do them at home, the big factor in taking that activity to the home is that you don't have your friends around you helping you do those activities. The environment's changed. And so what you may have seen with, in the day program is, the friends helping each other doing the activity. At home, they may struggle more with that activity because they don't have their friend there to kind of bounce things off of, or to, get that help from. So it kind of is both, it can go both ways. So that social grace thing is a really big thing. And then, but you may be able to gauge where they're at from those activities, and talking with the staff at the program too. They work with them hands-on day in and day out. So they're going to have a really good idea of where they're at in their abilities to do some of those activities, and how that could relate to some of the activities you could do at home.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that that information. That's actually a really helpful perspective. We are just about out of time, but I did want to point out that we will be continuing today's topic in an online series via YouTube over the next several weeks. So Stephanie shared a lot of really good information today about kind of shifting our perspective, letting go of certain expectations we might have, trying to understand the different types of activities that a loved one can engage in. And over the next couple of weeks, she's going to take us through different spaces in the house and offer some ideas about practical activities that we might do with a loved one who has dementia. So we hope that you will be able to join us. These activities throughout the home will be shorter videos that you can watch again on YouTube at your leisure, but they will be live streamed at 1:30 p.m., the same time that our program began today. So next week, Stephanie will be talking to us about activities in the kitchen at 1:30 p.m. And we encourage you to join us on our YouTube channel during the live stream, or to check out the recording at your earliest convenience.